Hey, what's up, guys? Ryan here. This is a DFS 5-pack. I wanted to take a couple minutes this afternoon, and I just wanted to throw my 2 cents out there for a lot of the up-and-coming or the smaller trying to be bigger, like DFS touts or whatever it is you want to call us out there. I've been doing this for a while. This has been full-time now for almost 2.5 years. I've been doing it for about a year and a half prior to that. So we're coming up in about 4 years. Do I know everything? No, of course not. Definitely. Am I the biggest person in fantasy sports and DFS? No. Not even close, but I'll give myself a pat on the back for simply the fact, like, I have a wife and 2 kids, and we pay the majority of our bills with, what we have right here. And I'm not playing big money and stuff like that, where that's the majority. Most of it, I come from running the business and stuff, So here's my 2 cents. Take it for what it's worth. There's a million ways to be good at this and a million things you can do to be successful. But every day I get followed on Twitter by a new person who wants to, be an up-and-coming tout. And I think there's room for all of us. So it's not one of these things where I see you guys as competition. I think there's plenty of room out there within the fantasy sports world, within the DFS world, that we can have dozens, if not hundreds of people be successful at that. And instead of viewing it as competition, view it as, good to see the industry growing. All right, so this is number one. And for most of you guys, you probably know this already. But my background for work, I'm 38 years old, which means I've been working pretty steadily for 20 years now in some fashion or the other. I've worked in restaurants a lot when I was younger. I started bartending again this summer just as an excuse to get out of the house. I do that once or twice a week, but mostly it's going to be within sales. And obviously I talk about how I played poker for a year or two, but most of it is going to be in sales. And this is something that most sales guys know. One of the reasons I wanted to do something I was passionate about like this is because I had trouble putting forth the activity into something I just didn't give a shit about. I love sports. I love math. Fantasy sports just works for me, but activity equals success. You're not just going to tweet once and get 1 million followers. It's just not the way things work. But every time you tweet, every time you do a YouTube video, every time you do something on Instagram, every time you post in a Facebook group, think about this as like a lead. This is a new opportunity to gain a new customer, a new opportunity for somebody to learn about who you are, what it is that you bring to the industry, and what it is that you have to offer. And just you have to make room for the activity. For me, ultimately, I cut my teeth and learned a lot about this doing sales. And this is stuff that's not necessarily common sense to everybody. But because I have a background in it, I have a little bit of a further understanding on it. And because I love this stuff, it is so much easier for me to be active. Like when I get up in the morning, now that school started again, I'll get my kids' lunch ready, make sure they're dressed, get them in the car with my wife to get them out the door. And instantly I'm on my computer. And it's so simple now because I love this. Whereas before, it was always a struggle with me in industries I didn't really care about. I would, do enough to get by and hit your sales quota and stuff like that. But I never really enjoyed any of it. Now the activity is easy. And that's one of the reasons we want to do this is because we love this shit, man. We love our DFS. We love our sports. We love our fantasy sports. But you got to be active. People have to know who you are. And unless you start with some sort of huge ad budget where you can get this stuff by paying for it, a lot of it's going to have to come from your own granular activity. So be active, be on social media, talk about sports. This is all stuff we love to talk about, so why not talk about it in front of others? All right, next up, be yourself. So unless you suck, that's just a great model for life, right? And I'm assuming most of y'all are pretty cool, so it's nothing, to be overly concerned about. But, if you're overconfident, I've been told I'm overconfident, I border on cocky. I get that. I can understand how it rubs some people the wrong way from time to time. But for the most part, being yourself and just being honest, run with it. If you're super, super analytical, don't try to shy away from that. Don't try to be a cocky, overconfident guy if that's just not who you are. If you're really analytical, hit people with the numbers. That's something that you offer that maybe other people wouldn't be good at. We all have different skill sets. So be yourself. Don't try to be anyone else. This works for life in general. But if you are a salesperson, and part of this is going to be like sales, like people buy from somebody they like. People buy from people who are themselves, and they're not phonies. They're not fake. Most people hate fake people, right? I think we can all agree upon that. So just be yourself. I cannot tell you how many times I've gotten people who have signed up with me over the years, and it's just like, hey, you just seem like a nice, normal, everyday dude. Or now that Matt's here, dudes. I kind of think that's the way things work. That's basically what I told Matt when he came on board is like, just be yourself. We're pretty average Midwestern guys who like to, I like to drink whiskey, watch sports, hang out with my family, eat burgers, bacon, good stuff like that. It's all pretty normal stuff that most of y'all like. So just kind of do what you do. People don't like fake people. So whatever you're good at, just use that as your skill set and kind of run with that. So I look at myself as a pretty normal guy. A lot of us will have a lot of the same, things that we like to do. So just kind of look at it that way. All right. So thick skin is an absolute must, especially if you're going to be customer facing. Now, if you get a job with somebody and all you're doing is analyzing the data and you don't have to be customer facing, obviously thick skin isn't nearly as big of a must. Matt and I have had a bunch of conversations about this. It is easy for me. This is just something that is a skill set of mine for good and for bad. I'm not very sensitive. I've been called bad names before. I'm still alive. I'm still here. My kids still like me, and that's all that really, really matters. But having thick skin is a must. You're going to get some haters. It's just the nature of the beast. On days when you're wrong and people think that they're obligated to play your plays and they're pissed at you, you're going to have some people that don't like you. What are you going to do about it, right? You're going to have slumps. Some days things don't go well. When you're talking baseball and you talk about a pitcher and he has a bad night, it's not your fault he didn't have his control. Sometimes you're just going to be wrong. Sometimes you're wrong on your own accord too. You're going to go through some ups and downs, but don't let the people, that like the quote unquote haters really get to you, because otherwise you won't be able to last doing something like this. I know this is easier for some people than it is for others. Some people really, really enjoy the hate. Maybe this is something that could be easy for you, but don't let it keep you up at night. Otherwise, you're just simply not going to be able to handle doing something like this. There are people out there that just live to hate. I'll pop open my YouTube channel sometimes and I'll see that like 8 videos in a row will all of a sudden have an extra thumbs down. I know that is somebody who just has way too much time on their hands that just went in there and thumbs down everything. I don't really get the point of it, but that's neither here nor there. It's not really my prerogative. They're allowed to do whatever they want. That's, this is the United States. You have your freedom. And if you want to go thumbs down and make negative comments on all my videos or everybody's videos, go do your thing. I've worked in bars, restaurants. I've done sales. This exists everywhere. Every industry you work in is going to have people who aren't going to be happy. You just got to learn to live with it. And as you can see, this picture I shared, every time I get a thumbs down on a video, you can't sit there and dwell about it. And if it bothers you, think about the fact that the Beatles, one of the most popular rock bands of all time, that basically, brought music to what a lot of us know. There's 912 thumbs downs on this, a really, really good song by the Beatles, a beloved band, throughout the world. And if there's 912 people that didn't like that, there's nothing that you're going to do that's going to make everybody happy. I used to joke about this when I worked in restaurants back in the day. You know what? There's always going to be customers who are going to complain, and they could order a steak. You could bring them a plate full of diamonds, worth $1 million that they're buying for $12.99. And there are people who are going to complain about the clarity. So there's nothing you can do. Live with it, move on. Some days you're just going to suck. We've had tons of them, right? It's just the nature of the beast. You're trying to control what other people do. This is not a 100% foolproof, type of industry. So deal with it, brush your shoulders off, move on to the next day. Okay, so here's one that I think is really important. Actually, I think they're all important, but there's room for a ton of us, guys. This isn't an industry where there can only be Roto Grinders, Fantasy Labs, Lion Star, and that's it. There's a million people out there who know a lot about sports, that love fantasy sports, that are really, really good at this. And there's room for all of us. So, I just 2 examples. A lot of you guys probably know who DFS Goat and Cam ATL are. They're 2 guys that, talk a lot of DFS. I don't know these guys personally. I've had very limited conversations via social media with them. They seem like all right dudes from everything that I know of. They seem like they're pretty good at what they do. I don't sit around and root against them. I root for them, because it just proves to me that this industry is growing, that this is something that we can, all of us can make it work. I clicked on one of their videos the other day and half the comments were from current or former paying customers of ours. People are going to get their information from multiple sources, and don't view it as a threat. View it as a vote of confidence that they're not only looking at you, they're looking at other people, but that the industry is growing. And just understand that it's not a one-time thing. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of you get your sports advice from a lot of different people, and you come up with half of it on your own anyways. That's fine. I can't look at every single player on every single slate. Football, kind of, you can. But like for baseball and basketball, and there's going to be some days where I have great takes, but I'm going to miss somebody. And if you go over to Cam, he might have a great take on somebody I missed. And the flip side works around too. So don't look at other people as threats. We realize that there is room for a ton of us. Go to Twitter and Twitter search, DFS, and you're going to find a million different providers out there, big, small, and in between. Obviously, me and these guys as well, we're all kind of that middle ground where we have an established following, but we surely are not roto grinders or, Line Star or something like that. And there's a bunch of us out there, and there's a bunch of other people who are doing a good job. There are plenty that suck, but I'm here to tell you, there's other guys out there I know for a fact really, really know their shit. And I don't get offended when I see that our customers listen to them too. I think that's great. You're finding ways to get better at this. It's a tough game, and you should find ways to get better. All right. Be on time. This is a big one for me. And now, I don't really pay for a lot of DFS info simply because I do a lot of manual research on my own. But I can remember having memberships to places like way back in the day. And if they tell you 4 o'clock is when stuff comes out and you're refreshing your computer screen at 4:45, that is annoying. So we do our best to be on time. Some days you're waiting on lineups, so it's tough. And most customers are relatively forgetting of that. But like most things in life, just make an effort to be on time, because that's an easy way to rub a customer the wrong way. Is if you say something's going to be out at a certain time and you don't post about it, you don't make any announcements, you don't talk on Twitter, Facebook, or anything like that, and they're sitting there waiting, that's just a good way to get on people's nerves. Okay. It takes time. This is not an instant gratification sort of thing. It takes a long time to build a following. I've already mentioned that, I've been doing this for years, and it was not an overnight sensation type of thing. I kind of fell into it by accident. I was just looking for a creative outlet, and it did grow quicker than I expected. But when I started doing this too, there just wasn't nearly as many of us out there. People have a million different, people they can listen to. Things are easy when you're going well. And I'll harken back to an NBA run that we had about 3 years ago. This was back even when we did like full lineup sharing, where I think for about a 3-month period in the second half of the NBA season, or the, kind of the middle portion of it, I want to say cash lineups hit at a 90% clip for about 3 months. Super easy then. I didn't have to do write-ups. We did one short YouTube video every single day, and all I was doing was emailing out these lineups. It was a point that even as a small provider at that time, we were hogging about 30%, 25, 30% of the massive $25 multi-entry double up, because things were so consistently great that everybody was max entering my lineups every single night. Now, that's the easy time. It's not always like that. NFL has been really, really good the last couple of years. And, again, I'll pat myself on the back because I feel really confident in my NFL cash game skills. But not everything is that simple, especially games like baseball, when there's so many outlying factors. You'll take some downturns, and that's the hard stuff to get through. And it's going to take time to build up your following. You're not going to all of a sudden one day decide you're going to hop on Twitter and have 75 customers at the end of the day. That's quite simply just not how it works. You have to have patience. You got to play the long game versus the short game. I cannot tell you how many times, I've seen people, pop up on YouTube, Twitter, wherever, or they've snaked their way into our group and tried to steal my customers because they had a nice little streak and they won a bunch of games and they want to be a lineup seller. And then 2 weeks later, they're gone. Got to play the long game here, guys. It's going to take some time. Most of you will probably have to work, your full-time job, assuming you already have one, or at least a part-time job while you're learning to supplement your income this way. Or either that or just, crush DFS to the point that you're winning enough to live off of. But it's going to take a lot of work, guys. I've been working 60, 70, 80-hour weeks for about 4 years in a row. And it's easier because I love this stuff. But don't get me wrong, there are definitely some weeks I would love to work less. Matt's in Atlantic City right now, or on his way there. He's taking 2 days off. Like, it's tough to take 2 days off. Like, I felt like he even seemed like he was hesitant to ask me. I'm like, dude, we need to get time away. I took a weekend off a couple of weekends ago to get away for a couple of days. Like, you got to stretch it and grow. But it's a long game type of thing. It's going to take time to build it up. So if you're not into it for the long term, it's going to take months. It could take years. It's not that simple. There's a ton of us out there. I'm pretty fortunate in the fact that I got started a little bit earlier. So I feel like I'm a step ahead of a lot of the people in that aspect. But like, I don't ever expect to catch roto grinders or anything like that. I'm realistic on that sense. So got to be in it for the long game, guys. All right, next up. Offer cheap prices to get a base of followers. So this first started for me as I just got on YouTube and I was just looking for a creative outlet. Because like a lot of you, I didn't love my job. I was sick of it. And I wanted to talk about something that I was passionate about, which is sports, specifically fantasy sports and, daily fantasy sports. I was doing that for fun for a couple of days. And somebody told me about the DraftKings affiliate program where you could get a link that if people signed up through you, you got a small percentage of the the rake that they paid on a daily basis. And I was doing that for a month maybe. And all of a sudden one guy's like, can I just pay you for your lineups? Because that was the deal. Sign up to be an affiliate under me so that I get a little bit of your rake, and I will email you out my lineup every single day. And then all of a sudden things were going really well for NBA DFS. And then people were just like, hey, can I just pay you for your lineup? So I was like, well, it's not the way I expected to do this, but sure, shoot me over $100 on PayPal. And we did that for a matter of months. Built up a nice little base of followers, got to the point that there was a couple of, I think about 200 people. And at that point, I kind of figured like we're too cheap right now. So raised the price. I think we doubled it at that point. I ran a huge sale for 1 week where I let as many people get in for $100 as possible. There was a lot of growth that week. It was great. But at that point, it was time to move into a more realistic price scenario. But now that I had this base of followers, I had people watching the YouTube channel every day. I had a base of Twitter followers. I had people who were, watching me consistently and everything like that, which was a big help. Sorry if it's loud. I got my door open and the Leaf guy's coming around right now. Let you go close the door really quickly. I'll be back in 5 seconds. All right, sorry about that, guys. We've had a lot of storms in Wisconsin lately, so there's tree branches all over the place, and those guys with those big trucks are going down our street right now. But, that's how I got started. I've watched some other DFS people kind of like use the same business model, and it seems to have worked pretty well for them. Good or bad, people will give you more credibility, at least if you have a small base of followers. If you go pop on a YouTube video and the guy's got 3 views and 2 subscribers, even though he could be the smartest fantasy sports guy in the world, a lot of people will just kind of skip right past him and not give him the time of day. Once you build up your base, then you can move your pricing into a little bit more of a realistic scenario. Right now, lifetime pricing for us is $350, and I still think that's too inexpensive. But maybe someday we'll raise it. But for now, we're pretty happy with where things are. I guess that's just kind of the way that I view it. I've seen other people use that as a successful model for them as well. So there's a million ways to do it, but that's what's worked for me and others I've seen. All right, so this is a tough one. Not all customers are created equal. Not all potential customers are created equal. And for a lot of you who work in some version of customer service, whether it's in a restaurant, whether you actually work customer service, if you're in sales, basically just if you work in business in general, it's important to note, and this is true throughout, like I said, the majority of these industries. And I can remember, working at restaurants, the people who want everything from you are usually the people that don't tip. They order the cheapest stuff. They want all the free stuff the restaurant might give away. They want free drinks on their birthday, and then they leave crappy tips. Thinking about back, I worked at True Green Lawn Care when I first moved back to Wisconsin. That was during the financial crisis, and there wasn't a lot of places hiring. So I did sales for a lawn care company. It kind of sucked. But at the same time, the people who would negotiate the cheapest prices were also the same people who would call up after every treatment and say they didn't think it worked well enough and demand a free one. Customers are going to be like that everywhere. And when Matt first came aboard, this is something that we discussed for a while. I don't think he necessarily believed me right away, but it wasn't very much longer before he was like, shit, man, you're right on this one. The people who want to try to negotiate with you on pricing are typically the same people that will get pissed off of you if the information's bad some night and stuff like that. And a lot of times you're just better off letting them walk away. It's really that simple. Don't chase customers who aren't going to be valuable to you. Now, the vast majority of our customers are absolutely awesome. So it's great, and we like it. And don't kiss the rear end of somebody that isn't going to be beneficial to your business. You're not beholden to them. Like, our monthly fee is $30 a month. That does not require us, if you have a bad night, or if you're mad because we had a bad night, and they're going to go smear you on social media, that's not necessarily somebody that you want as a customer. Let them walk away eventually. They're few and far between, but they do exist. And appreciate the customers that you have that are great, because they will often be the ones. The people who go out of their way with no benefit of themselves to tweet out, like when you have good nights and they go on Twitter just to give you a shout out, like those are great customers. They really, really help you build your business, and you should focus the majority of your attention on them. They're already locked in and probably not going anywhere, but it's so important to me to give them preferential treatment, because they're the people that are going to keep you going. They're the people that will help you find new customers just simply by doing little things like shout outs on Twitter, We don't expect customers to tip because we're a pay-for service. We'll take them, but we don't really ask for it or expect it. And I'm just giving a couple examples. Nick Ryan has been one of our earlier customers. He signed up during the whole $100 thing many, many years ago. He had a big year of NFL DFS last year, and he tossed me a nice tip at the end of the season. Like, that was not expected, but it was sincerely appreciated. Our boy Micah won a big money the other day, and he gave a really, really generous tip. Again, not expected, not necessary, but super, super, super appreciated. A couple of years ago, I go back, there was a guy that I allowed into one of our Facebook groups that was a customer, and then he set up his own DFS little business. And he felt it was a good idea. He tried to steal all of our customers at one point, and he tried, I was letting him advertise for free in the group, so it was a pretty crappy move, but he went out and tried to steal our customers by slandering us. I guess just me at the time, because Matt wasn't around. And we have a lady, Takesha, who was another one of our early on customers, and she absolutely went to bat. I saw her all over some of the free Facebook groups that they were trying to post in and stuff like that, saying that we were ripping people off, which couldn't be further from the truth. But like, she went out of her way and she was calling him out left and right. And it was this whole mess for about 2 days, and the whole thing blew over because ultimately we're still here. We're still, doing this for a living. His thing crashed and burned, which, karma's a bitch. I mean, ultimately that's what it comes down to. People don't like that. People don't like, you think about like it in politics, people hate like the negative political ads, and that wasn't working for him. So like, I just remember her specifically like going out of her way to like have my back in that situation. Like, that's a great customer. And that's where I think like a lot of your attention should be focused on. In most of our customers, okay, I'd say some of our customers are awesome. A lot of them you really just don't hear from. So you don't really know if they're awesome or not. They just read the stuff. They don't really feel the need to participate in social media. Cool. I got no issues with you. That's great. Thank you. I appreciate that. As long as you're, you paying for the service and you're using it, I don't really care if you ever give me a compliment at all whatsoever. It's appreciated when people do, but I don't need it. So you're also really, really good customers. And I said, they're few and far between, but don't focus on the people that aren't beneficial for the business. Give your major attention to the people who help you grow. And again, like those shout outs on Twitter and stuff like that, like that's invaluable. And you don't want to beg people or ask people to do that. But for the people that go out of the way, that just take time out of their day to do that, it's really, really cool. It's really, really appreciated. And I know I speak for not only myself, but for Matt and probably for any other DFS, quote unquote, tout out there. That stuff helps. So thank you, like from the bottom of our hearts. Like, I can't say it enough time. That stuff is like really, really appreciated. And that's about my little tidbit there for the day. So there's room for all of us, guys. Let's continue to rock this DFS thing. I hope, best of luck to everybody else out there. We've been talking to these guys. We had them on the podcast last week. Roto Beast is one of the guys' name, and DFS Cheat Sheet. Like, we're all here. We're congregate. I'm more than willing to go on anybody else's show. And if there's any other, DFS touts out there that want a guest spot in our show, we're all about mutually beneficial relationships where both people can help the other one grow. Like, I would love it if all of us combined could, continue to steal ownership from the bigger companies out there. That'd be great. I know they're probably not going anywhere, so I don't really think that we're going to put a dent into what they do or anything like that. But, I'm more than willing to help others if they're willing to help us. So thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one.